2 officers are standing on my porch on a Tuesday morning holding a felony complaint with my full legal name and middle initial. My mother filed it. She told them I stole my grandmother's emerald ring. My daughter Lily is at school. I am barefoot. My coffee has gone cold. I have not slept since the chairs at her 8th birthday party stayed empty. I am Myra 32, single mother, software engineer. 3 days earlier, I opened Venmo and sent my own mother $1. The memo read, "Hope it's memorable." I pressed send in this same kitchen, looking at 23 handmade name cards still stacked on the counter. Cards a little girl wrote in marker for relatives who RSVP'd yes and never once turned a doorknob. What the officers do not know, and what my mother does not know, is that the ring belongs to me in writing, and the letter inside my safe is about to read itself aloud in a ballroom my company owns. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is the channel for women who stopped explaining and started filing. Women whose loudest revenge was the document they already had. If you have ever held proof your family swore did not exist, leave one word in the comments and subscribe. 3 months before the birthday, I drove out to my mother's house for Sunday dinner with a stack of printed save-the-date cards in my purse. I had used good card stock. I had hand-dressed each one in Lily's name. I wanted nobody to have an out. My mother Diane was at the stove stirring something that smelled like cumin and resentment. My sister Brittany sat at the kitchen island with her phone face down. Her husband Ron was outside with my mother's husband Greg, both of them drinking the same beer in the same shade of brown. Lily was at home with Jennifer, my coworker, watching a Disney movie about a fish. I waited until the plates were down. I waited until the wine was poured. Then I stood up and walked one card around the table to each adult. I said it plainly. Lily is turning 8 on the 4th of May. I'm doing aerial party this year. Bounce house, cake, the whole thing. I want all of you there. Brittany picked up the card, read the date, tapped it into her calendar with one thumbnail. Got it, May 4th. Ron nodded, we'll be there. Aunt Margie was on speaker phone. She said, yes. My mother sat down her wine glass and looked at me with the version of her face she used at funerals. Of course we'll be there, honey. She's our baby. Lily had never had a party with extended family. Every year, somebody had anything. Camilla's recital. Camilla's quince planning. Camilla's school trip fundraiser. Every May was somebody else's costume change. This year, I had asked in person. I had watched the words land in each set of eyes. I drove home thinking I had done it right. I am an engineer. I build systems for a fintech firm in Charlotte called Hallard Capital, and I have not lost a deadline in 11 years. When I plan something, I plan it the way I plan a software release. By the 2nd week of February, I had a spreadsheet. Column A was names. Column B was relationship. Column C was the date of their confirmation. Column D was a hyperlink to the screenshot of the text where they confirmed. 14 family members had said yes. 4 coworkers had said maybe. I ordered 22 chairs. I rented a bounce house. I paid $185 for a 2-tier cake from a bakery on Main Street that Lily had chosen herself, the one with the pink display case. Every night before bed, Lily would lie on her stomach with her chin on her hands and recite Thegest lists to me like a prayer. Grandma Diane, Aunt Brittany, Uncle Ron, Camilla, Aunt Margie, Cousin Megan, Cousin Holly's husband, Uncle Pete, Aunt Carrie, Cousin Tess's boyfriend, Grandpa Greg, Mrs. Park, Jennifer, and the cake lady if she has time. She would always end with the cake lady. The cake lady had been kind to her at the consultation. I would say, "And me?" She would say, "Of course you're the boss." The kitchen table started disappearing undercard stock and glue sticks. Lily was making name cards. She had decided on her own that every chair needed one. I should have known then. I should have noticed that I was the only adult in this story who believed the spreadsheet was a contract. I had been building systems for 11 years. I had forgotten that families are not systems. The phone call from Brittany came on a Thursday, 3 weeks out. I was at my desk reviewing a code commit when her name lit up the screen. She opened light. "Hey, super quick thing. Don't kill me. We're doing a tiny prep meeting for Camilla's quint that same Saturday, like 2 to 4. It won't conflict with you, though. Yours is at 1, right? I clicked over to my spreadsheet. Yes, 1 to 5. Perfect. Mom and I will pop over to your thing after we drop by Camilla's. We'll bring a casserole. I asked who else was coming to the planning meeting. She did the thing she does when she lies. She talked faster. Just, the moms, some aunties. The DJ guy might swing by with samples. Camilla's friend group is doing the centerpieces. I asked where it was being held. Oh, just at the country club, Cypress Ridge. They have us in a side room for an hour, nothing big. I asked if she wanted me to push Lily's party to Sunday so there was no overlap at all. No, Mom would kill me. We've got everything set. Don't be a control freak, Myra. It'll be fine. I said okay. I logged the call. Date, time, length, the quote about the side room. I had been logging calls for 8 months by then. I had not told her. After we hung up, I sat looking at my phone. The thing about Brittany is that she has always been a passable liar to my mother and a terrible one to me. The tiny prep meeting had a venue. It had a DJ. It had a centerpiece crew. That is not a meeting. That is a party with a different name. I called my mother that Tuesday night. I rarely called her on weeknights. She picked up on the third ring in the voice she uses when she is moisturizing. Yes, Myra, what is it? I asked whether I should move Lily's party to Sunday to keep the day clean. I said the words I had practiced. I said them slowly. There was a pause. The pause was already an answer. She came back annoyed. Honey, Camilla's planning is just 2 hours. Everyone can do both. Why are you making this complicated? I told her that the planning meeting seemed to have grown beyond 2 hours. I told her about the venue. I told her about the DJ. She did not deny any of it. She said, don't be the difficult one, Myra. We get one quinceañera. We get one. Lily can have a birthday every single year. She's 8. She'll have 8 more. I said, I just don't want her to be disappointed. She said, she won't be. We'll be there. I'll bring the candles. I noted the call time on my phone. I wrote down candles. I underlined it. I almost said the next thing, the one that had been sitting under my tongue for years, about how every spring somebody had something Camilla needed and Lily's day got compressed. About how my mother had not come to Lily's 4th birthday or her 5th or her 6th because of recital and tournaments and one time a manicure. I did not say it. I said, thanks, Mom. See you Saturday. She made a small humming noise. Wear something nice. The casual stuff washes you out. She hung up first. She always did. May 4th was a Saturday. The morning came in cool and clean. The grass was still wet. And the compressor for the bounce house started up at 11 with a sound like a small airplane. The bounce house was $340 for 4 hours, cherry red and yellow with white inflated arches. The rental man, a quiet retiree named Bill, set it down on a tarp at the back of the yard and gave me his card. Call me when you're done, ma'am. I'll come kill the air. The cake arrived at 11:30. 2 tiers, pink and gold. A little fondant ate on top with sprinkles. The bakery owner stayed an extra 10 minutes because Lily wanted to thank her in person. Lily had written her a thank you card the night before. The chairs were rented, 22 of them white folding in 2 arcs around a long folding table covered in pink linen. The plates were paper but heavy weight. The cups had little owls on them. The name cards were Lily's project. She had been working on them for 2 weeks. Each one was a small folded piece of cardstock with a guest's name in her best calligraphy traced over twice with a metallic marker. The one on the chair at the head of the table said, Grandma Diane in gold. She put down her great-aunt Margie's card and stood back to look at the table. She put her hands on her hips like a foreman. It's beautiful, she said. I told her it was the most beautiful birthday table in all of North Carolina. I checked the time. 12:47, 13 minutes until the start. The sound of the bounce house compressor hummed steady behind us. At 12:50, my phone buzzed. Jennifer Park, my best friend at the firm, the woman who had been holding my coat through every bad year since I had hired her. Want me to swing by? I can bring my niece. She's 6. They'd love each other. I looked out at the table. 22 seats, 14 confirmed family. The math worked. The chairs would be full. No, you're sweet. Family only today. They wouldn't miss it. Lily's been counting down for weeks. She read the message and started typing. Stopped. Started. Stopped. Finally, okay, save me a slice. I told her I would. She sent a single heart emoji. She did not say what she wanted to say, which was, I think, what every good friend has wanted to say to every other good friend at some point in their lives. I went back outside. Lily was sitting on the porch steps in her dress. Pale pink white tights, a ribbon in her hair that Mrs. Park had given her 2 days earlier. She was holding the gift Mrs. Park had dropped off the night before, a small wrapped box about the size of a paperback book. She said, "Mommy, can I open Mrs. Park's first?" I said, "We wait for everyone." She nodded. She placed the gift back at the bottom of the gift table. She walked the line of name cards one more time, touching each one with one finger like she was counting them. I had told Jennifer family shows up. I had said it without thinking because to me that was the rule. You build the system, you plug in the inputs, and family shows up. I checked the time again. 12:56, 4 minutes. 1:00 in the afternoon came quietly. The driveway was empty. I told myself traffic. I told myself my mother's car had been making a sound the last time we talked. At 10:08, Lily turned to me from the porch steps and asked if Grandma was bringing the gift she'd promised. My mother had promised her 2 weeks earlier on the phone a bracelet from the jewelry case in her closet. A real one, she had said, with a real stone. Lily had been excited for 2 weeks. I said, "She'll bring it." I texted my mother. No reply. By 1:25, the bounce house was humming alone. 2 squirrels had appeared at the edge of the yard and were watching the inflatable arches sway in the breeze. The breeze was warm. The day was objectively perfect for a birthday party. Lily had gone inside. I could hear her in the living room talking to her stuffed rabbit. She was telling him not to worry. I walked the length of the table once. I straightened a name card that had been knocked askew by the wind. Aunt Margie's. I touched the corner of the pink linen. I looked at the road in front of the house. I looked at the cul-de-sac. There was one car parked across the street. It belonged to the neighbor. I had known that for an hour. When I came back inside, Lily was standing in the hallway with her hands clasped in front of her dress. She said, "Maybe Grandma is just slow." I told her, "Maybe." I told myself the lie, too. I told myself it for 10 more minutes before I picked up the phone again, and what I heard next stopped being a delay. At 2:00, I started making calls. My mother voicemail, Brittany voicemail. I waited 2 minutes between each one because that is what an engineer does. You give the system time to settle before you query it again. I am heralding you this because that is how my brain was working. I was watching myself try to debug a family. Aunt Margie voicemail, cousin Megan voicemail. By 2:15, I had left 4 messages, each one calm and clipped. "Hey, just checking on your ETA. Let me know." By 2:30, I had left 6. Lily came out and asked very quietly if she could open the gift from Mrs. Park first, just to have something to do. Her voice was the voice it gets right before she cries. I said yes. She sat on the rug in the living room and unwrapped Mrs. Park's gift slowly, the way she opens everything important. Inside was a small jewelry box, and inside the box was a beaded bracelet, peach and white, with a charm that looked like a little pearl. She put it on. She did not cry. She held her wrist out in front of her and looked at the bracelet for a long time. Then she said, "Mommy, do you think they got the time wrong?" I sat down on the rug next to her. I told her that grown-ups sometimes get times wrong. She nodded like that was a reasonable explanation. She had decided to give them another half hour. The bounce house was still humming in the yard. The cake was still on the kitchen counter under its glass dome. The name cards were still on the chairs in the slight breeze. I called my mother again. She did not answer. At 3:12, my phone buzzed. It was cousin Megan, my mother's sister's daughter, the one who actually likes me. The text was short, a confused emoji and one line. "I thought you were at Camilla's planning. Brittany said you'd be there. Are you sick?" I read it 3 times. I sat down at the corner of the long folding table. I sat down on the chair labeled Aunt Margie in gold marker. The cake under the glass dome reflected the sky. I called Megan back. She picked up on the first ring. "Hey," she said carefully. "Are you okay?" I asked her to tell me what was going on at Camilla's planning meeting. She paused. "Wait, did you really not get the chat?" "What chat?" "The family chat. Brittany sent invites last Tuesday. Said the planning meeting was 12 to 5 at Cypress Ridge Catered. She said everyone had confirmed. She said you'd be coming late because you had a small thing first. I said I wasn't in that chat. There was a long pause, then a small breath in. Oh, Myra. I asked her how many people were there. She said about 40. She said the buffet was huge. She said the venue was the main ballroom. She said there were balloons. I said balloons pink and gold like a party. I asked who else from the family was there. She started listing. My mother, Brittany, Ron, Aunt Margie, Aunt Carrie, Uncle Pete, the cousins, everyone I had invited to Lily's house at one. Everyone whose name was on a folded card on a white chair in my backyard, watching the wind move. I told her I had to go. I hung up. I sat in Aunt Margie's chair for a while. I did not get up. It was not a conflict. It was a takeover. I sat in Aunt Margie's chair and let the engineering brain do what it does best. It assembled the picture from the parts. Brittany had built a parallel event. She had built it bigger. She had told the family I was attending. She had framed Lily's party as the small thing I was doing first and would arrive late from. She had moved my mother out of my orbit and into hers, taking the rest of the family with her. She had been planning it for at least a week, probably longer. The country club ballroom had to be booked. The catering had to be ordered. The DJ samples and the centerpiece crew that she had mentioned to me on the phone, those warial things. She had told me they were a tiny prep meeting. She had used the word tiny. I understood sitting in Aunt Margie's chair that what she had moved was not just a calendar. She had moved a family. I understood sitting there that my mother had known. The thing I felt was not anger. I have felt anger before. Anger is loud and it has a center. This was quieter and it was every part of me at once. It was the feeling of standing at a railing and watching a building you built fall in. Lily came outside. She was wearing the bracelet Mrs. Park had given her. She walked the line of name cards once and stopped at her own. Hers was a little gold rectangle taped to her cake plate that said birthday girl in Lily's careful printing. She looked at me. She said, "Can we do the cake without them?" I told her, "Yes, baby, let's do the cake." At 4:02, my mother called. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. I did that for me, not for her. Her voice came through bright and breezy, the voice she used at PT of fundraisers. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry I missed your call. We've been need in tulle and napkin colors. Did Lily have a fun day?" I stood up out of Aunt Margie's chair. I walked into the yard with the bounce house humming behind me. I said, "Mom, the party was today. The party I invited you to in person 3 months ago. The party you said yes to in your kitchen with a wine glass in your hand." There was the smallest pause. Then she went into the voice she used at funerals. "Honey, we thought you were coming to Camilla's." Brittany told everyone you confirmed. She said you said 1 to 5 was perfect for you. I never confirmed anything for Camilla's. There was never a meeting for me to confirm to. There was a party, a full party with balloons and a buffet. Don't be dramatic. It wasn't a party. It was a long planning session. I said, "Mom, there were 40 people there." Cousin Megan told me. Another pause, then the recalibration. Well, it grew a bit. You know how Brittany is. She always overdoes it. "Yao didn't come to Lily's. Why didn't you reach out to us at noon to clarify, Myra? Why didn't you confirm again?" I did not answer. I could not answer. The question itself was the answer. She filled the silence. "Don't make this into something it isn't. We'll come by tomorrow with the bracelet. We'll do it right." I said, "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. I had to. At 5:00, Lily wanted the cake. I lit 8 candles, pink with little white twists, the kind you buy in a box from the grocery store on the same trip you buy mushrooms and bread. We sat at the long folding table with 22 chairs and 21 name cards still in their places. The wind had blown some of them sideways. Aunt Margie's had tipped forward onto the linen. Grandma Diane's was still on its head chair. The bounce house had started losing pressure. I had not called Bill yet to come kill the air. The compressor was running, but the structure was sagging in the middle, the cherry red roof folding inward over the white arches. The hiss was soft and continuous, like a slow leak in a tire, like a breath let out. Lily blew out the candles in one go. She closed her eyes for a second after, the way she does when she is making a wish. I do not know what she wished. I never asked. Some wishes are not for me. They belong only to the person who made them at the table where they made them. On the day they made them, I cut her a piece. She ate 3 bites. She put down her fork. She said, "Mommy, I think I'm done." I said, "'Kay, baby." She got up and went to the chair labeled Grandma Diane. She picked up the name card. She held it in front of her for a second. Then she walked it across the yard and dropped it gently into the trash can next to the back fence. She came back. She held my hand. I tucked her in at 7. She fell asleep before I closed the door. Then I went to my office. My office is the smallest bedroom in the house. I painted it a deep gray-green 4 years ago when I made VP. It has a desk, a swivel chair, 2 bookshelves, and a 4-drawer file cabinet in the corner that locks. I keep 2 keys, one on my keychain, one in the cedar box on my dresser. I unlocked the bottom drawer. I pulled out a folder. The folder was labeled in my own handwriting, Hartley. Eleliner. My grandmother was Eleliner Hartley. She had lived in Davidson, North Carolina for 43 years. She had been a registered nurse for 31 of them. She had died in November of 2023 at the age of 81 in the back bedroom of my house in a hospital I had set up myself with her hand in mine. She had moved in with me 8 months before she died. The doctors had given her 3. She had given them 5. In those 8 months, my mother had visited twice, once for an hour, once for 40 minutes. I had been keeping the folder for 6 months. I had not opened the sealed envelope inside it. My grandmother had written my name on the front of the envelope in her round, slanted script, and below my name she had written the instruction "Open after first public injustice." That was her phrasing, public injustice. She used the kind of words a woman of her generation used when she meant something specific. She meant the day they did it where everyone could see. I sat at my desk. I put the folder on the green felt bladder. I looked at the sealed envelope for a long time. Then I picked up the letter opener my grandmother had given me at 15. I slid it open. The letter was 3 pages. Eleliner Hartley wrote on watermarked stationery the color of old cream. Her handwriting was the same shape it had been on every Christmas card of my life. I read it sitting up. I did not pour wine. I did not light a candle. I read it the way you read a will. My Myra, when you open this, it will be because Diane has done in public what she has been doing in private for 30 years. I watched her choose Brittany at every Christmas. I watched her skip your 10th birthday and remember Camilla's salon appointment. I asked her about it once gently in my own kitchen while she dried the dishes. She told me you did not need her the way Brittany did. She said you were self-sufficient. She said it like it was a virtue she had stopped feeling obligated to love. Sweetheart, that was the day I called my attorney. Everything I held is now yours to administer. The life insurance policy I took out in 1998. $340,000 was assigned to you in the 2nd month of our last 8 together. The cedar box on your dresser is yours. The emerald ring is yours. It was my mother's, and it was never going to my younger daughter because my mother said so on her deathbed, and I have kept that promise. The savings account at First Federal 81,000 and change is yours. The photograph albums I gave Diane, the Bible I gave Diane, the apology I owed her that I could not give her in any sufficient form is also hers. I have written separate sealed instructions for my executive Henry Hendricks regarding any family event your sister or mother organizes within 12 months of my death. He is to read this letter aloud at that event, if and only if you request it. The text of the reading is approved by my attorney and witnessed by 2 parties at signing. That is the law I made for my own death. Use it once, use it for Lily. I love you, Myra, I always did. Even when I was tired, even when I was wrong. Grandma, I did not cry. I had cried 6 months ago. I picked up my phone. I texted Aaron Rose, my grandmother's estate attorney, the man who had become my attorney the November she died. I wrote, "I want to start the file." He replied in 90 seconds, standing by. The week after Lily's birthday, I did what Ito. I made a ledger. Column A was item. Column B was expense. Column C was status. Column D was notes. Bounce house $340 paid. Used for 42 minutes total by one child alone with no friends. Cherry red cake. $185 paid. 2 tiers. 3 bites consumed. Remainder donated to a women's shelter in Charlotte on Monday afternoon. The shelter director sent a note that they had served it at a Tuesday potluck, and the residents had asked for the recipe. Catering, chairs, linens, paper goods, party favors, $291 and dollars change, paid, mostly unused. The party favors I had wrapped small jars of bubbles and a packet of crayons. I quietly redistributed to Lily's school for her class. 14 family members confirmed, 0 attended, 22 voicemails left across 9 numbers between 2 and 5 in the afternoon. 6 replies total in the week following. 5 of those 6 were from cousin Megan, who texted me apologetically on Saturday night, Sunday morning, Monday morning, Wednesday morning, and Friday. She also dropped off a small wrapped box on Wednesday with a card that said, "I'm sorry, I'm a coward. I love Lily." The box held a charm bracelet. Sterling real. The 6th reply was from Aunt Margie. 3 words. Voicemail. "Sorry, sweetie. Schedule got crazy." She did not call me back when I called back. I documented all of it. I screenshotted the text threads. I exported them to a single secured PDF. I labeled the PDF with the date and the file name DTL Party Fallout 2024. PDF, and I dropped it into the folder labeled Hartley Ellinger. Aaron called me Thursday morning. The estate paperwork was ready. Probate had cleared in March. He told me whenever I was ready. I told him to hold. I was waiting for the trigger. Lily asked me her question on Tuesday night. We were brushing her teeth. She was wearing the bracelet from Mrs. Park and the new one from cousin Megan. Her hair was wet from the bath. She spit out the toothpaste. She looked at me in the mirror. She said, "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" I asked her what she meant. She said, "Like Ta Grandma, did I do something?" Is that why she didn't come? The thing about being 8 is that you are still trying to figure out who is responsible for the things that happen. You start with yourself because you are the only person whose mind you have full access to. You check yourself first. You ask, "Did I do this?" You ask, "Was it me?" She had been turning it over in her head for 10 days. I knelt down on the bath mat. I held both of her shoulders. I said, "Yow did nothing wrong. Some grown-ups just forget how to keep promises." She nodded slowly. She accepted it. She is generous that way. She climbed into bed. I read her one chapter of Charlotte's Web. I turned out the light in the hallway. With the door half shut behind me, I leaned my forehead against the cool wall. 8 years old. She had learned the wrong question. I went downstairs. I poured myself a glass of water. I did not pour wine. I picked up my phone. I scrolled to Aaron Rose's number. I did not call him. Not yet. I was waiting for one more thing. I felt in my chest that it was coming. The text from my mother came on Wednesday morning, May 11th at 10:34. I was at my desk at Hallard Capital in the middle of code review on a release we were pushing the following week. I felt the phone vibrate. I saw the preview on the lock screen. "Your niece's quinceañera is $2,600 each. Send your share today. No exceptions. Family Venmo at Diane Eaton." There was no hello. There was no "How is Lily?" There was no "I am sorry about Saturday." There was no acknowledgement that 9 days had passed since 14 people had confirmed to be at my house and 0 had shown. The text just sat there on my screen like a parking ticket. A second text came in 30 seconds later. "Don't be cheap. This is family." I read both of them. Then I read both of them again. A third text came in another minute. "You will not embarrass me by making us cover your share. Ron's family is watching." I sat at my desk. The cursor blinked in Micode Editor. The room was quiet. Jennifer was 3 desks down with her headphones on. Through the floor toe-ceiling window behind her, the Charlotte skyline cut a clean line against the sky. The thing my mother had not understood, the thing she had never bothered to learn in 32 years, was that the engineer in me would not be moved by escalation. Escalation to me is data. The more she sent, the more I had. I opened the screenshot app on my phone. I screenshotted each one. I airdropped them to my desktop. I labeled the folder demand 2024-0511. Then I opened Venmo. I searched Venmo for it, Diane Eaton. Her account came up. Profile picture was a stock photo of a sunset over a beach she had never been to. I tapped the amount field. I typed $1. I tapped the memo field. I typed, hope it's memorable. I held my thumb over the send button for about 2 seconds, maybe 3. I am not going to dress it up. Then I sent it. The notification flashed. 10:36 in the morning. Sent $1 to Diane Eaton. Note, hope it's memorable. It was the cheapest thing I had ever bought and the most I had ever paid for it. I screenshotted the confirmation. I airdropped it. I dropped it into the folder labeled Demand 2024051. I closed the app. I went back to my code review. My pulse did not change. I had thought it would. I had thought there would be a feeling, the kind of feeling people describe in books where the moment of decision is heavy and full of meaning. There was not. There was only the soft click of the keys under my fingers and the cursor blinking and the sound of Jennifer laughing at something on her screen and the gentle thrum of the building's HVAC. It felt like sending an email. It felt like the calced moment of my year. If you have ever sent a family member a single dollar in protest, or if you wanted to but didn't, drop the date in the comments. I read everyone. And if any of this is sounding like a story you have lived, hit subscribe before you go anywhere because I have a lot more of these and you have not heard the half of mine. I closed Venmo. I went back to work. 23 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Brittany's first text came at 10:41. Her second came at 10:42. The first call was at 10:44. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail came in at 10:46. The transcript on my screen in pale blue letters read, "How dare you embarrass us in the family chat? Mom is in tears. I am shaking. Do you know what this looks like to Ron's family? We have RSVP'd. We have a venue. We have a ceremony in 3 weeks. Call me back. Call me back, Myra." I did not call her back. Between 10:44 and 11:06, she called 14 times. The screen lit up over and over with her contact photo, a picture from her wedding she had set herself. 14 attempts in 22 minutes. She called from her office. She called from her cell. She called from Ron's cell. She called from a number I did not have. My mother's voicemail came in at 11:09. Her voice was thin and sharpened. "Myra, you sent your mother a dollar like I am a beggar after everything I have given you. After every sacrifice, pick up the phone, Myra Eaton. Pick up the phone right now." A second voicemail at 11:12. "You think you are better than us. You always did. You think you are better because of your job, your house. You are not." A third at 11:15. "Camilla is going to find out you did this. Is that what you want?" I did not pick up. I screenshotted each transcript. I dropped each one into the folder. Then I forwarded everything to Aaron Rose at his work email with 2 sentences in the body of the message. "Begin the file today. I left work at noon. I told my manager I had a personal matter. He told me to take what I needed. He has known me 11 years. I drove home. I called the locksmith from the car. He was a man named Hal, 60-some, semi-retired, who runs his own shop out of his garage in Maury'sville. He came out within the hour. By 2005, my house had 4 new locks: front door, back door, garage entry, office. My mother had a spare to the front. She had taken it when my grandmother was sick. She had been supposed to return it 3 times. She had never returned it. Hal handed me the new set of keys in a small envelope. He charged me $180 cash. He did not ask why. He has worked for women in this town before. After he left, I opened my phone. I blocked Diane Eaton. I blocked Brittany Vega. I blocked Ron Vega. I blocked Aunt Margie. I blocked 3 cousins whose names I had been logging for years. I left cousin Megan unblocked. Then I drafted 1 email through Aaron Rose's office. I did not send it from my account. He sent it from his to Diane Eaton, Brittany Vega. Subject: communication going forward body. Please be advised that effective today, all communications from Diane Eaton and Brittany Vega regarding Myra Eaton or her daughter Lily Eaton will be routed through legal counsel. Future direct contact will be considered harassment. Sincerely, Aaron Rose. Rose and Linwood, attorney for the estate of Eleanor Hartley. I read it 3 times. I told Aaron to send it. He sent it at 4:18. I did not slam a door. I changed who had the key. I picked up Lily from school at 3. I made her macaroni for dinner. Thursday at lunch, Jennifer came over. She sat at my kitchen counter. She drank black coffee and ate half of an apple pastry. I told her everything. The dollar, the voicemails, the locksmith, the email through Aaron. When I was done, she put down her coffee. She said, "Myra, you should sue her." False reporting, emotional damages, defamation in the family chat, the whole thing, make a federal case. Drain her. I said, "I'm not suing." She said, "What?" I said, "I'm not suing, I'm withdrawing. There is a difference." She tilted her head the way she does in meetings when someone has said something she does not yet understand. I said, "Suing means I still want them to pay. Suing means I still want a verdict. I do not. Withdrawing means I want them to disappear from my life and from Lily's life and from the calendar of every weekend we have left on this earth. I want the second thing." She thought about that. She drank her coffee. She nodded slowly. She said, "Yeah, okay. That's actually better. That's actually scary." I said, "It's not scary, it's bookkeeping. If you have ever been the family member who embarrasses everyone just by drawing a line, hit subscribe. I tell these stories every Sunday." I read every comment. Jennifer finished her coffee. She rinsed the cup in my sink. She looked out the window over the yard. The bounce house was long gone. Bill had killed the air the Monday after. She said, "Myra, what's the actual play?" I said, "Saturday the 28th, Cypress Ridge, the Hartley Ballroom, the Quincy." She turned and looked at me. "Wait, the Hartley Ballroom. As in," I said, "yes, as in Friday morning, Aaron's office, 8th floor of a downtown building. View of the Hornets Arena." He had laid out the papers in the order I needed them. The certified probated will, the court order, the life insurance disbursement record showing the $340,000 had cleared into the trust account Aaron managed for me in February, the chain of custody for the emerald ring, the chain of custody for the cedar box, the chain of custody for the photograph albums, and the Bible which had been delivered to my mother's house in late March by certified mail, signed for by Greg. He confirmed the date Brittany had booked the quinceañera. Saturday, May 28th, 5 in the afternoon, reception at 6. Venue, Cypress Ridge Country Club. Room, the Hartley Ballroom. Aaron looked up at me over his reading glasses. He said, "Myra, the Hartley Ballroom." Hartley, as in I said, "My grandmother." Yes, he sat back. And as in I said, "My company Halbert Capital bought the naming rights 2 years ago. Corporate gift to the club, 200,000. I signed the paperwork. The plaque has my grandmother's name on it because I asked them to put her name. The club agreed because I wrote the check. He looked at me for a long moment. He said, "Diana knows this." I said, "Diane has not asked me a single question about my work in 8 years. She does not know I am a VP. She does not know we did the nomming. She doesn't read my Christmas cards." Aaron took off his glasses. He set them carefully on the desk. He looked for a half-second like a man who was trying not to smile and failing. He said, "Myra, the room they are going to humiliate you in is the room you named." 2 days after I sent the dollar on Saturday, May 14th, the doorbell rang at 8:43 in the morning. I was in the kitchen, coffee in one hand. Lily was at school. Jennifer had picked her up at 7:30 and taken her to the lake with her own daughter for the day. The plan was a packed lunch and a paddle boat and ice cream on the way home. The doorbell rang again, then a knock. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. 2 officers, Davidson PD. The female officer in front was maybe in her mid-40s. Sandy hair pulled back. Her partner was a younger man behind her, hand resting on his belt. I opened the door. I did not open the screen door. She introduced herself. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Daniels, Davidson PD. This is Officer Ray's. We received a complaint of grand larceny that named you as the party in possession of the alleged item." "Do you have a moment to talk?" I stepped out onto the porch. I closed the front door behind me. I was barefoot. The porch wood was warm from the early sun. I said, "Yes, which item is the complaint about?" She glanced at her notes. An emerald ring described as a family heirloom valued per the complainant at approximately $15,000. I said, "May I ask who made the complaint?" She said, "A Mrs. Diane Eaton." I nodded once. I had known what the answer was going to be before I asked the question. I asked anyway because I have learned over time to make my mother's choices be hers in her own words on the record. I said, "Officer, I will need to step inside to get a document. May I?" She said, "Yes, ma'am." I walked to my office. Ian locked the bottom file drawer. I lifted out the manila folder labeled Hartley Ellinger. Inside it, in a clear plastic envelope, was the certified probated will of Eleanor Hartley with the court seal on the cover sheet. Inside a smaller velvet box was the ring itself. Behind the will was the item-by-item bequest list. Behind that was the chain of custody form signed by Aaron Rose and notarized. I walked back to the porch. I handed the entire folder to Officer Daniels. She took it carefully, both hands. She read the cover sheet of the will. She turned to the bequest list. Her eyes scanned for the relevant line. I knew it was on page 4 because I had read it 43 times. Item 19. 1 emerald ring, gold setting, 18th century origin. Appraised value $14,750. Bequeathed to Myra Eaton, granddaughter. She read it. She closed the folder. She handed it back to me. She said, "Ma'am, would you mind showing me the item itself?" I said, "Of course." I opened the velvet box. The ring sat in dark blue felt. The emerald was about the size of my thumbnail. My grandmother had worn it on her right hand for 57 years. She had never taken it off except in the last week of her life. Officer Daniels looked at it. She did not touch it. She nodded once. She turned aside. She got on her radio. She spoke for about 30 seconds. She came back. She said, "Ma'am, I apologize for the disturbance. This appears to be a fully documented legal transfer. We're going to close this complaint." Then she said, "You're entitled to file for false report misdemeanor in our jurisdiction. We can take the affidavit right now if you want." I closed the velvet box. I held it in my palm. I said, "Officer, I appreciate the offer, but I have something better than a misdemeanor." Officer Daniels gave me a half smile that did not reach her eyes, but did somehow manage to honor what I had just said. She handed me a business card. She told me to call her directly if my mother attempted to file any further reports. She and her partner left. They drove off down the cul-de-sac in a quiet patrol car at 5 m an hour. A neighbor across the way pretended to be watering plants. He had clearly been watering plants for the entire visit. I closed the front door behind me. I walked back to the kitchen. My coffee was cold. I called Aaron Rose. I said, "Today we do it today." He said, "May 28th, 2 weeks." I said, "Yes." He confirmed Mr. Atris, the executive of my grandmother's estate, was available. The reading instructions had been notarized. 3 of my grandmother's friends, Mrs. Calloway from across the street, Reverend Pike from First Methodist, and Mrs. Park, who was Jennifer's mother and had been my grandmother's bridge partner for 19 years, had been on standby for months. I called my CEO from the kitchen. His name is David Owens. He has known me 8 years. I said, "David, I'd like to attend a private family event at the Hartley Ballroom on the 28th. I'd like to bring our general counsel and the executive of Migrandmother's estate. Would the firm have any issue with that?" He laughed quietly. He said, "Myra, it's literally your name. Take whoever you need. Do you want security?" I said, "No, just a quiet check-in with the club's events director the morning of." He said, "Done, I'll handle it." I hung up. I poured fresh coffee. I had not asked permission for anything in 6 months. I did not need to start now. May 28th, 4:15 in the afternoon. Cypress Ridge Country Club, the Hartley Ballroom. I wore a deep emerald dress, tea-length cap sleeves. My hair was pinned up the way my grandmother had taught me to pin it. The emerald ring was on my right hand. My grandmother's pearl necklace, the one with the small emerald set at the center, was at my collar. I parked under the magnolia tree at the side of the lot. Aaron was already there. He stepped out of his sedan in a navy suit. Mr. Hendricks, the executive, was a thin man of about 70 in a gray suit with a small American flag pin on his lapel. Mrs. Calloway wore a lavender dress and held her purse with both hands. Reverend Pike wore a black suit and a collar. Mrs. Park wore navy and pearls and looked in profile like my grandmother's twin. We walked together across the parking lot. We did not hurry. We did not slow. The Hartley Ballroom is on the south side of the clubhouse. The plaque outside the double doors reads Hartley Ballroom, a gift of Halbert Capital, Charlotte, North Carolina, in honor of Eleanor M. Hartley, RN 1942 to 2023. Brittany was at the registration table inside the foyer. She was wearing a pale gold gown. She was checking off guests on a clipboard. She looked up when I came through the doors. She went white. Not pale. White, she said. Myra, what are you? You can't be, I said calmly in the voice I use in board meetings. I have an envelope from the executive of my grandmother's estate. I will be brief. I will be quiet. I will be gone in 10 minutes. She looked at Mr. Atris. She looked at the plaque on the wall behind me. She sat down her pen. My mother was 30 FT inside the ballroom, standing near the dais where the DJ was setting up. She was in a champagne dress. She held a clipboard. She was issuing directions to a man who was adjusting the height of a microphone. Camilla, 14, in a soft blue gown with a beaded bodice, stood near her mother. She had her hair up. She had practiced. She had been practicing all week. I knew this because Megan had told me the room held about 70 guests, round tables of 8, white linens, pink and gold centerpieces. The catering staff was setting out salad plates. My mother turned. She saw me. She saw the emerald necklace at my collar. She saw the ring on my hand. She saw the 5 people behind me in suits and a clerical collar. She sat down her clipboard. She walked toward me. She was a woman in good shoes who had been a small, powerful presence in our kitchen for 32 years. And she was in that moment the smallest she had ever looked. She came up close. She lowered her voice to a hiss. She said, "You are not welcome here. This is family. You leave right now. You leave right now or I am calling security." I kept my voice low. I kept my voice level. I had practiced too. I said, "Mom, I am here on Grandma's instruction. There is an envelope. The executive reads it or I read it. You decide which." Her eyes flickered to Mr. Hendris, to Aaron, to Mrs. Calloway. She knew Mrs. Calloway. Mrs. Calloway had brought her a casserole the week my grandmother died. The room had gone quiet. The catering staff had stopped moving. The DJ had set down his microphone. Camilla was watching from the dais. She had not moved. Mr. Hendricks stepped forward. He was unhurried. He walked to the small registration table at the front of the ballroom and set down a leather portfolio. He opened it. He withdrew a single envelope sealed with red wax. He cleared his throat once. The room, which had already gone quiet, went quieter. He read in the dry, careful voice of a man who has read wills aloud for 40 years. I, Eleanor May Hartley of Davidson, North Carolina, being of sound mind and under no duress, do request this letter be read at any family event organized by my daughter Diane Eaton within 12 months of my death, if and only if my granddaughter Myra Eaton requests its reading. The reading is to be conducted by my appointed executive Henry Hendris. This is my final exercise of authority over my own estate. He paused. He turned to the second page. Diane, I watched you choose Brittany at every birthday. I watched you skip Myra's 10th birthday and remember Camilla's salon appointment that same afternoon. I asked you about it once in my own kitchen while you dried the dishes. You told me Myra did not need you the way Brittany did. You said it like it was a virtue you had stopped feeling obligated to love. That was the day I called my attorney. He turned to the third page. The life insurance policy I held, $340,000, was assigned to my granddaughter, Myra Eaton, in the second month of our last date together. The cedar box on her dresser is hers. The emerald ring on her hand right now is hers. The Hartley savings account is hers. You received the photograph albums, the Bible, and my apology that I could not give you what you wanted from me in any sufficient form. The room was holding its breath. He turned to Camilla. He read the last paragraph directly to her. Camilla, you are not in this letter because you have done anything wrong. You are mentioned because you are the next woman in this family and I want you to hear from me directly. Do not let them write your story. Be loved for who you are, not for who you remind them of. Live freely, mija. He closed the portfolio. My mother's face had broken, her mouth opened. Her voice came out high and cracking. She said she was an old woman. She didn't know what she was. I said low even. Looking at her, she knew. She just didn't tell you. My mother's voice rose. She said, You couldn't wait. You ruined her party. Look at her. She is crying. Camilla was not crying. Camilla was standing very still on the dais with both hands clasped in front of her bodice, watching me with a look on her face I would think about for the rest of the summer. Brittany came forward from the foyer. She took my mother's arm. She said, Mom, stop. Mom, please stop. I looked at my mother. Then at Brittany, I said, Your event is paid for, Mom. Camilla's dress is paid for. The catering, the venue, the DJ, the cake, all paid for. I am not taking any of this from her. I never was. I waited a beat. I said, I am taking back the part of me that thought I had to ask. I turned. The 5 witnesses turned with me. The doors of the Hartley ballroom were heavy oak with brass handles paneled in the original 1946 millwork. They had been refinished 2 years ago as part of the corporate gift. I had signed off on the millwork sample myself in a meeting that had taken 27 minutes. We walked through them. Behind me, the room stayed silent for the count of 3. Then a single chair scraped, then a murmur, then nothing I could hear because we were already in the foyer and Aaron was holding the outer door and the late afternoon sun was on my face. We walked across the parking lot to our cars. Mrs. Calloway took my hand for a second at her car door. She did not say anything. She did not need to. I got in my car. I drove home to Lily. 2 days later on Monday, May 30th, I got a text from a number I did not recognize. Aunt Myra, it's Camilla. Can I see you? I'm using my friend's phone because Mom took mine. I texted back. Coffee shop on Main and Davidson, 400. I'll be at a corner table. She came in at 5, jeans, gray hoodie, no makeup, hair in a low ponytail. She looked in that hoodie like she was 12. She sat down across from me and ordered nothing. She said, I didn't know. I said, I know you didn't. She said, about Lily, about the birthday, about any of it. Mom told me you didn't come to my planning meeting because you were too busy. She said you didn't care. I made you a playlist for the after party. I had 8 songs on it. I never gave it to you. She pulled a small USB drive out of her hoodie pocket. She slid it across the table. I want to give it to Lily if she'll have it. I took the USB, she said. I want to know my grandma, the one in the letter. Will you tell me about her? I said she wanted you to grow up free, Camilla, not as a weapon. She was a nurse for 31 years. She raised your mother and mine in a house she built by hand with my grandfather. She made the best cornbread in the state of North Carolina. She would have loved you. She did love you. She just couldn't get to you through them. Camilla's eyes were wet, but she did not let them spill. She said, Will I see you again? I said, If you call me, yes, you can call me from any phone. Use any phone. She nodded. She stood. She left. I sat with my coffee. I held the USB drive in my palm. 1 month later, on the last Sunday in June, Lily turned 8 in 1 month. We did not have a big party. We had a small one. Jennifer and her daughter, Mrs. Park, the cake lady from the bakery, and 3 of Lily's classmates from school with their mothers. I sold the bounce house. Not really. I sold the rental contract. Bill had been kind enough to let me transfer the deposit to my neighbor's son's birthday in July. $40. He delivered the cherry red bounce house himself with a small wave to Lily over the back fence. Lily kept 1 name card, hers, the one that said birthday girl in her careful printing. She kept it in the top drawer of her bedside table. I kept the cedar box on my dresser. Inside it on a small square of white linen is the emerald ring. Next to the ring is a folded piece of cardstock that says Grandma Diane in gold marker with my mother's name spelled the way Lily had practiced for 2 weeks. I took it out of the trash can the night of the party when Lily was asleep, and I cleaned the corners with Mitham. She has not asked about Grandma Diane in 7 months. She does not ask the wrong question anymore. What I learned from those empty chairs was this. Family is not the people who share your last name. Family is the contract you sign with the witnesses who show up in writing in good faith on the day you said you needed them. That's my story. $1, 1 letter, 1 door I never opened again. If this story reminded you to write something down before they tell you it never happened, take that as a sign. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next.